freeways and freeways and freeways. We really don't think too much about them, unless of course we've been stuck waiting for hours in a traffic jam. They've always been a visible, major industrial asset of Los Angeles. We just use them to speedily commute from home to work every day, or we may use them for a casual vacation without really giving them much thought. But how did they come to be? Who decided where to place them, and where? Besides the obvious benefits, are there any drawbacks as well? The truth is, and this is true for most public assets and initiatives, there is a disproportionate negative impact on some communities versus other communities. In other words, some groups of people benefit more from these public assets than others. For most of Los Angeles, freeways are a beneficial means of speed transportation. It's super easy for us to go 70 miles an hour on the freeway with the mindset of solely getting to a particular destination on time. But this fixed mindset simultaneously makes visible things around the freeway almost appear invisible. See, not everything along the freeway completely registers into the minds. They become an unnoticed blur, forever unaddressed and left behind in the dust. Just like the Greek poet Homer said, out of sight, out of mind. This statement still stands true today. So, what are those invisible things that we drive past every day? And what makes those things invisible? I want to focus on a particular group of people who live along the 405 freeway, and even those communities that used to live where the 405 freeway is constructed. And that group is unsurprisingly low-income Black, Asian, and Latino communities. These groups of people are negatively impacted by freeways like the 405, and hardly anyone knows the full scope of their suffering, or the racist history behind the Los Angeles freeways in general. But I want to focus particularly on the 405 freeway because it's the one that I take to school every day. Let me explain. The 405 went under construction in 1957 and finally finished in 1964. Believe it or not, the 405 was initially created as a bypass road from the I-5 freeway, meaning the 405 was primarily built as a means of evenly spreading out traffic congestion, so that it's not so heavy in more developed communities. But the 405 freeway was built where no previous road existed before, which caused massive conflict between those who supported the bypass to reduce congestion and those who opposed urban renewal of underdeveloped lands, often minority-based lands. Surprisingly, ever since the 405 freeway was built, it has become the most busiest travel and congested freeway in the whole United States. About 379,000 vehicles drive on the 405 every day. The 405 freeway has played a crucial part in the development of several cities that it goes through. It became a major freeway for commuters and connected to major airports and universities along the way. But in the process of its construction, it also tore through the minority communities such as African American, Latino, and Asian communities. The federal government has the right to acquire private property to build infrastructure for the public good at the cost of fair market value. This process is also known as eminent domain. Thousands upon thousands of private buildings, including homes and businesses, were completely demolished for the construction of freeways. And get this, most of these private buildings were owned by African Americans and Latinos. The federal government funded freeway construction, and they concluded that tearing through the minority neighborhoods would be very cost-effective, because there wouldn't be as much political opposition. UCLA professor Eric Avila has done extensive research behind the motivation of where freeways are constructed, and he concluded that the freeway construction was usually made for areas that are considered light to go through. Freeway construction forced these families to leave their homes unexpectedly without their consent, and settle somewhere else without any financial help from the government. In addition, freeways distributed pedestrian landscapes, eroded green spaces, and decreased property values of surrounding communities. The building of freeways all around the nation had disproportionately affected minority and low-income communities. To make matters worse, these communities have also been hurt by racist zoning policies. The construction of the 405 freeway, and like any other freeway, is an example of racial discrimination called redlining and segregation. Redlining is used to distinguish portions of a map that indicates poor economic status of certain neighborhoods due to retailer neglect. Neighborhoods that are seen as impoverished, infiltrated by undesirable populations, such as African Americans and Latinos, and neighborhoods that are nearby industrial factories are called Type D and highlighted in red. This is in contrast to majority white neighborhoods, highlighted in green. The separation of races into certain neighborhoods is called racial segregation. You could easily see the redlining in relation to the 405 freeway. Notice how the 405 freeway only runs straight through Type D, the impoverished arid areas. This is also true in relation to the pollution map of Los Angeles, where the red areas indicate the most pollution. According to these maps, we see how racial segregation and hazardous living conditions are created along the 405 freeway. So you may be wondering why this Type D is mainly found near freeways. As mentioned before, the state forcibly moves racial groups such as African Americans, Asians, and Latinos for eminent domain. So many of these groups were forced into undesirable yet affordable places. These communities living along the freeway consistently suffer from noise and air pollution, and they also lack the accessibility of adequate and much-needed healthcare and treatments. Check out this neighborhood segregation map of the 405. I want to focus specifically between the Torrance and Long Beach area, which is my daily commute to school. The purple and orange areas are a mixture of multiple races such as African Americans, Asians, Latinos, and whites, which surround the 405. This is because the racial displacement of eminent domain forced predominantly single-race communities to leave their own neighborhoods and live together in often white neighborhoods. The minority migration to white neighborhoods, however, caused a massive wave of white flight, so many Caucasians left their own homes as well, all due to the construction of the 405 freeway. Driving to school, I tried to see how the 405 freeway affected the surrounding communities from the perspective of a commuter, and I made a startling discovery that I never thought of before. And this crucial infrastructural component is the wall. The walls on the freeways have always been a visible component to the freeways, but commuters so easily drive past it without giving it much thought. But I studied the walls very closely, and notice that the walls don't cover the entirety of the freeway. They're only present at certain locations. After some time of observations, I concluded that the walls are only present when the freeways are right next to the surrounding neighborhoods. Residents living next to the freeway have complained about the air pollution and consistent obnoxious traffic noise. I couldn't imagine waking up to traffic noise every morning. It would be unbearable. So transportation agencies focused on ensuring that barriers would reduce noise. Walls are supposed to reduce noise in the surrounding communities. However, recent research has proven that concrete sound barrier walls actually create unwanted and unpredictable reflected noise issues. This is because the sound waves hit the wall, and the reflective surface of the concrete causes the sound waves to go in the opposite direction, towards the neighborhood. This excessive noise contributes to many health problems, including high blood pressure, heart attacks, strokes, mood swings, lack of sleep, immune suppression, and other chronic health issues. One controversial benefit that I find to be the most interesting is the sense of privacy that walls give to residents. The freeway walls are a visible infrastructure, but they're also used as a means of invisibility for neighborhoods. From the commuter's perspective, they're not able to see the surrounding neighborhoods. Maybe some are not even aware that there are neighborhoods that feed away from the freeway. While the walls provide a sense of privacy for community residents, I wonder if these walls are also meant to shield commuters to the reality of the plight of these low-income neighborhoods. Commuters are simply faced with nice, plant-covered walls, covering the realities hidden behind them. Walls don't really shield residents from the constant noise and air pollution. So I wonder if these walls are really there, mostly for the benefit of the commuters driving their cars. Freeway walls are a visible component of the freeway that separates commuters and residents, but they also create an invisible separation of privacy, traffic noise, and air pollution. But if there were no walls present, both worlds would be connected with each other through the immense power of visibility. And if this were true, Foucault's theory also proved true. Surveillance between both worlds would hold each other accountable in unnatural ways under the influence of vision's power. Then the question then becomes, how would daily life be if both worlds would be visibly revealed to each other without any forms of barriers? Would it be better than having walls separating them?